You said you'd pay my mom. Why did you lie? William Carter stopped walking when he heard the voice behind him. He turned slowly. You're talking to me?
Are you
William
speaking
asked.
to me?
Yes, sir. William studied her for a moment. What money are you talking about? What do you mean I said I would pay your mom? Who is your mom? My mom works here, the girl said. She cleans the rooms upstairs, washes clothes, and sometimes helps in the kitchen. She works very hard. She leaves early in the morning and comes home very late at night. Sometimes her hands hurt so much she can't hold a spoon. William's expression changed slightly, but he stayed silent, letting her speak. My mom hasn't been paid for 3 months, the girl continued. Every time she asks, they tell her to wait. They always say there is a problem and she will get paid next week. But next week keeps moving. She pointed down the hallway toward the service area where her mother was standing, unsure whether she should come closer or stay invisible. This morning, the owner of our apartment came and asked for the rent again, the girl said. My mom told him, please wait just one more day. My boss said they will pay me today. I will pay you everything tomorrow. She promised him because the manager here said you told them to pay her today. William felt a slow, cold feeling forming in his chest. We came here in the morning and waited, the girl said. My mom didn't even eat. She said we should wait here so we don't miss the money. We waited all day. The landlord kept calling her and telling her to come back and pack our things. But my mom said no. She said, Mr. Carter promised. I will wait until the evening. She looked straight at him. So I came to ask you. Why did you lie to my mom? William did not answer right away. Instead, he looked past the girl toward the woman standing near the service door. Can you come here, please? He said. The woman walked toward them slowly, her hands nervously twisting together. I'm sorry, Mr. Carter, she said quickly. She's just worried. She shouldn't have spoken to you like that. This is my fault. I'm not asking for an apology, William said. I'm asking if what she said is true. Have you really not been paid for 3 months? The woman lowered her eyes. Yes, sir. But I know these things can take time. I didn't want to cause trouble. I just needed to pay my rent. That's all. And someone told you I approved payment for today? Yes, sir. The house manager said you told him this morning. William's face grew very still. I never said that, he said quietly. At that exact moment, the woman's phone rang. She looked at the screen, and her face immediately turned pale. It's my landlord, she whispered. She looked like she wanted to reject the call, but her hands were shaking. Answer it, the little girl said softly. Then she looked at her mother and added, Mom, put it on speaker. Let him hear. Let Mr. Carter hear. The woman hesitated, embarrassed. No, that's not polite. Please, Mom, the girl said. He should know. The phone kept ringing. William said nothing. He simply stood there. Slowly, the woman pressed the green button and then the speaker icon. She held the phone in both hands like it was something fragile. A man's voice exploded through the speaker, loud and angry. Sarah, where are you? I told you I need the rent today. I've been calling you all day. I'm at work, she said quietly. I told you. I'm waiting for my salary. They said they would pay me today. I can bring you the money tomorrow morning. Please, just give me one more day. I already gave you more days, the man shouted. You said that last week and the week before. You owe 3 months now. I have another tenant ready to move in. If you don't bring the money, you come back tonight and start packing. Do you understand me? Tonight, please, she said, her voice breaking but still controlled. My daughter is with me. We don't have anywhere else to go. I will pay. I just need one more day. I don't want promises anymore, the man snapped. I want money. If you don't come tonight, I will change the locks tomorrow. The call ended. The woman slowly lowered the phone. Her hands were trembling now, and she stared at the floor because she couldn't look at anyone. The little girl looked up at William again and asked quietly, Did you hear that, sir? William Carter did not answer immediately. His face had changed. Yes, he said finally. I heard. The girl nodded once. Then now you know why my mom kept waiting, she said. She believed you. William stood there for a long moment, saying nothing. Then he spoke, his voice low and controlled. Wait here, he said. Don't go anywhere. He turned and walked down the long hallway toward his office. His steps were slow, but each one felt heavier than the last. William Carter walked quickly down the hallway, his mind already moving through possibilities, accounts, authorizations, signatures. Someone had approved delayed payroll. Someone had released money. Someone had lied and used his name to do it. He was halfway to the main office when he heard fast footsteps behind him. Mr. Carter. Mr. Carter. William turned. Mr. Reynolds, the house manager, was walking toward him quickly, slightly out of breath, as if he had been looking for him. I was just coming to find you, sir, Reynolds said. Good, William replied. Because I was about to come find you. Reynolds immediately straightened, sensing the tone. We need to talk about staff salaries, William said. Right now. Reynolds hesitated just for a fraction of a second, but William noticed. Yes, sir, Reynolds said carefully. I just spoke with Sarah, William continued. She hasn't been paid in 3 months, and I'm being told you informed her that I personally approved payment for today. I want to know why my name was used and why my employee has been working in my house for 3 months without pay. Reynolds took a slow breath. Sir, this situation is a bit complicated. William's eyes hardened slightly. Payroll is not complicated. People work. People get paid. So explain the complication. Reynolds lowered his voice. Sir, this matter involves Mrs. Carter. William did not move. What about my wife? He asked. For the past few months, Reynolds said carefully, choosing each word. Mrs. Carter has asked the household office to delay some salary payments. She said there were temporary cash flow adjustments between accounts and that she would handle the payroll personally. And you agreed to that? William asked. She told us you knew, Reynolds said. She said you approved it and that you didn't want to be bothered with household payroll details. William stared at him for a long moment. I never said that, William said quietly. Reynolds nodded slowly. I understand that now, sir. William's jaw tightened. How much money was supposed to go to payroll in the last 3 months? Reynolds told him the number. William didn't react to the amount itself. He reacted to what the amount meant: hours of work, bus rides, groceries not bought, rent not paid. A child listening to adults talk about being forced out of a home. Where is Mrs. Carter right now? William asked. In the main wing, sir. I believe she's upstairs. Go get her, William said. Tell her I need to speak with her immediately. Reynolds hesitated again. Sir. She said she was preparing to go out this evening. William's eyes narrowed. Go. Get. My. Wife. Yes, sir. Reynolds turned and walked quickly toward the main staircase. William remained standing in the hallway, very still, his hands in his pockets, his mind going somewhere far away. A few minutes later, Reynolds returned. Mrs. Carter said she'll be down in a moment, he said. She's getting ready to go out. Go out where? William asked. She didn't say, sir, Reynolds replied. Then, after a small pause, he added quietly, but on Thursday evenings, she usually attends a private card game with her friends. William looked at him. Cards? He said. Yes, sir. Poker. High stakes, I believe. William said nothing. At that moment, Margaret Carter appeared at the top of the staircase. She was elegant, perfectly dressed, jewelry catching the light, her hair styled, her makeup flawless. William, she said lightly as she walked down the stairs. Reynolds said you needed something. I'm actually on my way out. So can this be quick? William watched her walk toward him. Did you tell the staff that I approved salary payments for today? William asked. Margaret paused for half a second, then smiled slightly. Oh, that. Yes, I told them we were sorting out payroll. I assumed you wouldn't mind if I handled it. That's not what I asked, William said. Did you tell them I said they would be paid today? Margaret waved her hand dismissively. William, please. It's just the house staff. They worry too much. If you don't give them a date, they keep asking questions. It's easier to just tell them a day so they calm down. William felt something cold settle into his chest. So you used my name, he said, to make promises about money that you had no intention of paying today. Margaret sighed, clearly annoyed now. I said I would handle it. I just needed a little more time. Where's the money, Margaret? William asked. She looked at him, then at Reynolds, then back at William. I moved some funds around. I told you. I'll put it back. Where is the money? He asked again, his voice lower now. Margaret's expression hardened slightly. I had a few bad nights, all right. It happens. I was going to win it back. I always do. The hallway was very quiet. You took employee salaries, William said slowly, and gambled with it. Margaret crossed her arms. Don't make it sound so dramatic. It's temporary. They'll get their money. People like that always need money. If you pay them once, they'll stay forever. William did not react to the insult. Instead, he asked one very simple question. Do you know what happens to them if they don't get paid? He asked. Margaret shrugged. They find another job. That's how the world works. William looked at her for a long moment. And when he spoke again, his voice was so No, he said quietly. That's not how the world works. That's how our world works. And starting today, that changes. If this moment touched your heart, please like this video and share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us where you are watching from and what you would have done in William's place. And do not forget to subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories about justice, courage, and standing up for what is right. Margaret Carter held her purse in one hand and her car keys in the other, as if the conversation was already over and she was simply waiting for William to step aside and let her pass. But William did not move. For a long moment, the two of them stood facing each other in the center of the hallway, the polished marble floor, the tall windows, the expensive paintings on the walls, all of it suddenly feeling like a stage where something important was about to break. You took their salaries, William said again, his voice calm and low. And you gambled with it. Margaret exhaled, clearly irritated now. I told you, it was temporary. I had a few bad nights. I was going to put the money back before anyone even noticed. They noticed, William said. 3 months ago. Margaret rolled her eyes slightly. William, please. You're acting like I robbed a bank. It's just staff payroll. We're talking about what? A few $1,000s? You spend more than that on a single bottle of wine when you entertain investors. William did not respond to that. He simply looked at her, and the longer he looked, the more Margaret's confident expression began to harden into something defensive. Do you know her landlord called while we were standing in the hallway? William asked. Margaret frowned. What are you talking about? The landlord, William repeated. He told her to go home tonight and pack her things because she hasn't paid rent. 3 months. The same 3 months you've been borrowing her salary to play cards. Margaret shifted her weight slightly but said nothing. There's a child involved, William continued. She stood in this house and asked me why I lied to her mother. Margaret's expression changed slightly, but only slightly. You're being dramatic, she said. You didn't lie. I just used your name to calm them down. That's part of managing staff. If you don't control them, they start making demands. William almost smiled when he heard that, not because it was funny, but because it reminded him of something he had heard many years ago. He was 10 years old, sitting at a kitchen table while his mother spoke softly to her employer on the phone. He remembered her saying, I understand, ma'am. I'll wait until next week. Thank you, ma'am. After she hung up, she sat very still for a long time, staring at nothing. He had asked her, Did they pay you? She had smiled and said, Not yet. But they said next week for sure. Next week had come and gone. And then another next week. And another. Standing in his own hallway now, William realized something that made his stomach tighten. His house had become that house. Reynolds, William said without looking away from Margaret. How much do we owe in total? All staff. Exact number. Reynolds, who had been standing quietly near the wall, stepped forward and told him. William nodded once. Call the bank. Transfer the full amount immediately. Add an extra month of salary to each employee as compensation for the delay. Margaret turned sharply. William, that's completely unnecessary. William ignored her. Tonight, he continued, I want every employee paid. Not tomorrow, not next week. Tonight. If the bank transfer can't be completed immediately, we issue cashier's checks and deliver them in person. Yes, sir, Reynolds said. Margaret let out a short laugh, the kind people use when they think someone is overreacting. You're going to reward them? For what? For waiting? For complaining? William finally looked directly at her. "For working," he said, "for showing up every day, for trusting that when they work, they will be paid." "That's not a reward, Margaret. That's called being decent." Margaret's face hardened. "You're letting a maid and her kid manipulate you." William did not raise his voice. "No," he said. "I'm letting a child remind me of something I should have never forgotten." Margaret crossed her arms. "You're really going to start a fight with me over house staff?" "I'm not starting a fight," William said. "I'm ending a mistake." Margaret looked at him for a long moment, studying his face, trying to figure out if this was one of his temporary moral moods that would pass by morning. "You're overreacting," she said finally. "You always do this when something reminds you of your past. You forget who you are now." William's voice became very quiet. "No," he said. "I think I just remembered exactly who I am." Margaret picked up her purse again. "I don't have time for this. I'm late." "For poker?" William asked. She stopped. "Yes," she said, turning back to him. "For poker. And before you start judging me again, those games are with people you do business with. The same people who help you make millions. So don't pretend my social life doesn't benefit you." William nodded slowly. "How much did you lose?" he asked. Margaret hesitated. "That's none of your business." "It became my business when you started paying your debts with other people's salaries," William said. She looked away first. "That much?" William asked quietly. Margaret didn't answer, and that was answer enough. William reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He dialed a number. "James," he said when the person answered, "I need you to come to the house tonight. Bring the financial records for the household accounts and the foundation accounts for the last 6 months. Yes, tonight." He ended the call and put the phone back in his pocket. Margaret watched him carefully now. "Why the foundation accounts?" she asked. William looked at her, and for the first time that evening, there was something in his eyes that made her uneasy. "Because if you were desperate enough to use payroll money," he said, "I need to know where else the money went." Margaret's face went pale for just a fraction of a second, and William saw it. In business, he had learned that people rarely confessed with words. They confessed with pauses, with silence, with the way their eyes moved when you asked the right question. "You didn't just take salary money, did you?" he asked quietly. Margaret said nothing. William nodded slowly, as if confirming something to himself. "Reynolds," he said, without looking away from his wife. "After you arrange the salary payments, I want a full report of every transfer Mrs. Carter authorized from any household or charity account." Margaret's voice sharpened. "You don't trust me now?" William answered without hesitation. "No," he said. "Right now I don't." The word hung in the air between them, heavy and final. Upstairs, somewhere in the house, a door closed softly. In the kitchen, dishes clinked as staff pretended not to listen. Outside, the evening light faded over the perfectly trimmed gardens. Inside the Carter house, something much more important than money had just been broken, and both of them knew there was no easy way to fix it. That night, the Carter house did not feel the same. The lights were still warm, the floors still polished, dinner was still served at the usual time, and the staff still moved quietly through the hallways like they always did. From the outside, nothing had changed, but inside, the air felt different, like the moment before a storm, when everything looks calm but the pressure starts to build. William sat alone in his study, the small blue notebook on the desk in front of him. He had not turned on the main lights, only the desk lamp. The yellow light fell across the worn pages where Sarah had written every hour she worked, every week she was not paid. He ran his fingers lightly over the numbers. Week 1, week 2, week 3. 3 months of someone waking up early, taking the bus across the city, cleaning someone else's house, washing someone else's clothes, cooking someone else's meals, and then going home with nothing. He leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. For a moment, he was not in his study anymore. He was 10 years old again, sitting at a small table, watching his mother count coins and small bills, organizing them into neat little stacks. Rent, electricity, food, bus fare. She always paid rent first, always, because, she used to say, as long as we have a roof, we can survive anything else. Until the month they couldn't. A soft knock on the door pulled him back to the present. "Come in," William said. Reynolds entered quietly. "Sir, the bank has confirmed the transfers. All staff salaries have been sent. I also added the additional month compensation as you instructed." Each employee has received a confirmation email and printed statement. William nodded once. Good. And Sarah? I called her into the office, Reynolds said. When she saw the amount in her account, she thought there had been a mistake. She kept saying the number was too big. William looked down at the notebook again. It's not too big, he said quietly. It's exactly what she earned. Plus what we owed her for the trouble. Reynolds hesitated for a moment, then said, Sir, if I may say something. William looked up. Go ahead. In all my years working in large houses like this, Reynolds said slowly, I've noticed something. Wealthy people are very careful with big money. Investments, properties, taxes, business deals, they watch every dollar. But when it comes to small money, staff salaries, overtime, reimbursements, that's where mistakes happen. Because to them, it's small money. But to the people who earn it, it's their entire life. William was quiet for a moment. It's not small money, he said. It's small to us. That's the difference. Reynolds nodded. There's something else, sir, Reynolds added. Your accountant, Mr. James Porter, is here. He's reviewing the household and foundation accounts like you requested. Send him in, William said. A few minutes later, James Porter entered the study carrying a laptop and several folders. He had worked with William for over 10 years and was one of the few people who spoke to him without fear. You sounded serious on the phone, James said, sitting down across from the desk. So I came as fast as I could. I need to know if money has been taken from any account Margaret has access to, William said. Not estimates, exact numbers, exact dates. James opened his laptop and began typing. I already started checking on the way here, he said. Household account first. He turned the screen slightly so William could see. There have been multiple large withdrawals over the last 3 months, James said. All authorized by Margaret. The amounts match the missing payroll, plus additional withdrawals. Additional? William asked. James clicked another file. Charity Foundation account, he said. There are 3 transfers from the foundation account to a private account under Margaret's name, listed as event expenses, but there are no corresponding event records. William felt his stomach tighten slightly. How much? He asked. James told him the number. This time, even for William, it was not a small number. That foundation pays for housing assistance, scholarships, medical bills, William said quietly. James nodded. Yes, which means if that money is gone, some of those payments may have been delayed. William stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the city lights stretched into the distance. Thousands of apartments, thousands of families, thousands of kitchen tables where people sat at night trying to figure out how to pay for rent, school, medicine. He had created that foundation because he remembered what it felt like to sit at that table. Behind him, James spoke carefully. William, how bad do you want me to dig? William didn't turn around. All the way, he said. I want every account she touched, every transfer, every debt, every game she played. I want to know exactly how deep this goes. James nodded slowly. All right, he said. But if this is what I think it is, this isn't just a household problem anymore. This could become a legal problem. William finally turned back to the desk. If laws were broken, then it is a legal problem, he said. And we deal with it. James studied him for a moment. This is your wife, he said quietly. William did not answer immediately. Instead, he picked up Sarah's notebook again and opened to the first unpaid week. 3 months, he said. That little girl stood in my hallway today and asked me why I lied. I didn't even know there was a lie being told in my name. He closed the notebook. I built everything I have so I would never be the man who lets someone work and then tells them to wait for their pay. William said, if I ignore this because she's my wife, then I become exactly that man. The room was very quiet after that. James nodded once. All right, he said. Then we do this properly. After James left the study to continue his investigation, William remained alone for a long time. Around 10 o'clock, there was another knock on the door. This time, when he said, "Come in," it was Sarah and her daughter. Sarah looked nervous. "Mr. Carter, I'm sorry to come so late. Mr. Reynolds told me the money was in my account. I checked. It's really there, all of it." Even more than I expected. William nodded. That's your salary. And compensation for the delay. Sarah held her hands together tightly. I don't know how to thank you. William shook his head slightly. You don't thank someone for paying what they owe you, he said. That's not a favor. That's an obligation. The little girl looked around the study, then back at him. So, you didn't lie? She asked. William looked at her for a long moment. No, he said, but someone lied using my name, and I'm going to fix that. The girl seemed to think about that carefully, like children do when they are deciding whether to trust an adult. My mom says a promise is very important, she said. She says when adults break promises, kids remember forever. William felt those words more than he expected. Yes, he said quietly, she's right. He walked around the desk and opened a drawer. From inside, he took out a business card and wrote a number on the back. This is my direct number, he said, handing it to Sarah. If anyone ever tells you I said something about your job, your salary, or your home, you call me, and you ask me directly. Don't wait 3 months. Don't wait 3 days. Sarah took the card like it was something extremely valuable. Thank you, sir, she said softly. After they left, William stood alone in the study again. On his desk were 2 things: a foundation financial report showing missing money, and a small blue notebook filled with unpaid weeks of honest work. William Carter looked at both for a long time and understood something very clearly. This was no longer about one unpaid salary. This was about the kind of man he was going to be, now that he finally knew the truth. The next morning, William Carter woke up earlier than usual. He did not check the markets. He did not check his email. He did not turn on the television in his bedroom to watch the financial news like he did every morning. Instead, he sat at the small table near the window with a cup of black coffee and Sarah's blue notebook in front of him. The house was quiet. In a house, this large silence in the early morning felt almost like a different world before the staff arrived, before the phones started ringing, before the day began telling everyone what to do. William opened the notebook again, week after week, the same careful handwriting. Dates, hours, amounts. At the bottom of each page, a small total, double underlined. Whoever had taught Sarah to keep records had taught her well. He imagined her at night, sitting at a small table somewhere, maybe after her daughter had gone to sleep, writing down the hours under a dim kitchen light, making sure the numbers were correct because when you don't have much money, numbers are not just numbers, they are food, rent, bus fare, heat in the winter. He closed the notebook slowly and looked out the window, across the lawn, near the side entrance where staff usually came in. He saw a small figure sitting on the stone steps, the little girl. She had a notebook of her own, and a box of crayons spread out beside her. She was drawing very seriously, her head bent, her feet swinging slightly above the ground. William watched her for a moment, then picked up his coffee and walked outside. She noticed him when he was a few steps away, and quickly stood up. Good morning, sir, she said politely. Good morning, William replied. You're here early. My mom starts early, she said. I come with her before school sometimes. William nodded and looked at the drawing on the step. It was a house. A small house with a door, 2 windows, and a tree next to it. There was smoke coming out of the chimney and a sun in the corner. That's a nice house, William said. She nodded. It's a warm house, she said. I draw warm houses. William crouched slightly so he could see the drawing better. What makes a house warm? He asked. The girl thought about that question seriously. When you don't have to worry about someone telling you to leave, she said. William did not answer right away. After a moment, he asked, Did your mom get the money last night? She nodded quickly. Yes, sir. She checked her phone many times because she thought maybe it was a mistake. But it was there. She cried a little, but she said they were good tears. William looked at the drawing again. I'm glad, he said. She looked up at him. Are you in trouble? She asked. William almost smiled. Why would I be in trouble? Because you looked very serious last night, she said. My teacher says adults only look like that when something very bad or very important is happening. William considered that. Sometimes, he said, very bad things and very important things are the same thing. She seemed to accept that answer. Sir, she said after a moment. Are you mad at my mom Because I talked to you like that yesterday. William looked at her, surprised. No, he said. Why would I be mad at your mom? Because I asked you about money, she said. Some people don't like talking about money. William nodded slowly. That's true, he said. But the people who don't like talking about money are usually the people who have a lot of it. The people who don't have money have to talk about it all the time. She thought about that and nodded like it made sense. My mom says money isn't the most important thing, she said. But rent is very important. William let out a quiet breath that was almost a laugh. Your mom is a very smart woman, he said. At that moment, Reynolds came out through the side door, holding a folder. Sir, Reynolds said, Mr. Porter sent the preliminary report. William stood up and took the folder. Thank you. He opened it right there, flipping through the pages. Transfers, account numbers, dates, authorizations, household account withdrawals large and frequent, foundation account transfers labeled as event expenses but redirected to a private account, credit reports outstanding gambling debts, private club invoices. He closed the folder slowly. Sir? Reynolds asked carefully. This is bigger than I thought, William said quietly. Much bigger. He looked back at the girl sitting on the steps, coloring the roof of her paper house bright red. Reynolds, William said, still watching the drawing. How long have you worked in large houses? 32 years, sir. In all that time, William asked, have you ever seen a situation like this before? Reynolds thought for a moment. Not exactly like this, he said. But I have seen something similar many times. What do you mean? I mean, Reynolds said slowly. When rich families have problems, they usually think the problem is money. But it's almost never money. It's pride, or secrets, or people thinking rules don't apply to them anymore. William nodded slightly. Sir, Reynolds added, what would you like me to do now? William looked at the folder in his hand, then at the drawing on the steps, then at the big house behind him. First, William said, I want every employee contract reviewed and updated. Payment dates, overtime, sick days, everything in writing, clear and signed. No more wait until next week. Yes, sir. Second, I want an independent auditor to review the foundation accounts. Not our usual firm. An outside firm. Reynolds nodded again. And third, William said, his voice quieter now, I want to speak with my wife tonight. Not as her husband. As the person responsible for everything that happens under this roof. Reynolds understood what that meant. Yes, sir, he said. William looked down one more time at the little drawing of the warm house. For some people, he said quietly, almost to himself, salary is just a number on a spreadsheet. But for some people, it's the only thing standing between them and the street. He closed the folder and handed it back to Reynolds. Make the calls, William said. All of them, because this ends now. As he walked back toward the house, he realized something he had not expected to realize at this point in his life. Building a fortune had been very difficult, but protecting people was going to be much harder. That evening, the Carter house was quiet again, but this time the silence felt different from the night before. It was no longer the calm silence of a well-run household. It was the silence of people who knew something important was about to happen. William stood in his study, looking at the financial report James had sent earlier that afternoon. The numbers were now organized into clear categories. Household payroll delays, household account withdrawals, foundation transfers, gambling debts, private club payments. When separated and labeled, the story became impossible to ignore. Margaret had not only used household money, she had used foundation money, money that was supposed to pay for rent assistance, medical bills, and school programs, money that was supposed to help people who were exactly like Sarah had been 3 months ago. William closed the folder and sat down slowly. There was a time in his life when money had meant survival. Then there was a time when money meant success. Later, money became power, influence, security. But now, looking at those numbers, he realized money also meant responsibility. And responsibility was the one thing people often forgot when they had too much of everything else. At 7 o'clock, Reynolds knocked on the study door. Mrs. Carter is in the dining room, sir, he said. She said she would speak with you now. William nodded. Thank you. When William entered the dining room, Margaret was already seated at the long table. a glass of wine in front of her. She looked composed, elegant, as if this were just another evening conversation about travel plans or social events. "You wanted to talk," she said. William sat down across from her. He did not bring the folders with him. He did not need them. He already knew the numbers by memory. "Yes," he said. "We need to talk about the money. All of it." Margaret took a sip of wine. "I already told you. I had some losses. I was going to fix it." "You didn't just take household payroll," William said. "You took money from the foundation." Margaret paused with the glass halfway to the table. "That money was just sitting there," she said. "It wasn't being used yet." "It was allocated," William replied. "For housing assistance. For families behind on rent. For medical bills. For scholarships." Margaret shrugged slightly. "And it will be replaced. You act like I burned it." William leaned back slightly in his chair and looked at her for a long moment before speaking again. "Do you know why I created that foundation?" he asked. Margaret sighed. "Yes, William, because you grew up poor. I've heard the story." William ignored the tone in her voice. "When I was a kid," he said, "my mother worked in 3 different houses. Cleaning, cooking, laundry. She left before I woke up and came back after I fell asleep. One winter, one of the families she worked for stopped paying her. They kept telling her to wait. Next week. Next week. Next week. Next week." Margaret said nothing. "We fell behind on rent," William continued. "Then the electricity bill. Then the heater stopped working. I used to sleep in my coat sometimes because it was so cold. My mother kept saying everything would be fine because the money was coming next week." He paused. "The money never came." Margaret looked at him, but her expression did not change much. "She got sick that winter," William said quietly. "She kept working anyway, because she thought if she stopped working, they would never pay her. She died 2 years later. Her body just gave up. Too much work. Not enough food. Too much stress." The dining room felt very large and very quiet. William looked at Margaret directly. "I built that foundation so that when someone is about to lose their home, there is money to help them. So that some kid doesn't have to sleep in a coat in winter wondering why adults don't keep their promises." Margaret set her glass down slowly. "I didn't know you were going to turn this into a moral speech," she said. "I said I would pay it back." "This isn't just about paying it back," William said. "This is about what you did to get that money." Margaret's voice sharpened. "I played cards. That's not a crime. Using charity money is," William said quietly. Margaret stared at him. "You wouldn't report your own wife," she said. William did not answer immediately. Instead, he said something else. "Do you remember yesterday afternoon?" he asked. "When that little girl stood in the hallway and asked me why I lied." Margaret rolled her eyes slightly. "Yes, the maid's kid. What about her?" William's voice became very calm again. "When she asked me that question, I realized something. She wasn't really asking about money. She was asking if I was the kind of man who lets people trust him and then disappears when it's time to do the right thing." Margaret leaned back in her chair. "You're choosing strangers over your own family," she said. William shook his head slowly. "No," he said. "I'm choosing what's right over what's easy." Margaret looked at him for a long time, trying to see if this was negotiable, if this was a phase, if this was something she could talk him out of. "What are you going to do?" she asked finally. William answered without hesitation. "First, every dollar you took goes back where it belongs," he said, "immediately. From your personal accounts, your investments, whatever you have to sell." Margaret's face hardened. "And if I don't?" William looked at her steadily. "Then I move the money back myself and the accountants document everything." She understood what that meant. "And second?" she asked. William took a slow breath. "Second," he said, "you stop using my name to make promises to people whose lives can be destroyed by those promises." Margaret laughed quietly, but there was no humor in it. "You've changed," she said. William looked at her and said something very simple. "No," he said. "I think I just remembered who I was before I had all this money." Margaret picked up her glass again but didn't drink. "You know this is going to become a scandal if this gets out," she said. "Your foundation, your company, your reputation, everything could be affected." William nodded slowly. "Yes," he said. "I know. And you're willing to risk all of that?" For staff salaries and some charity accounts. William thought for a moment before answering. No, he said. I'm willing to risk all of that so that when a child asks me if I lied, the answer is no. Neither of them spoke after that. Outside, the city lights filled the windows. Inside the dining room, a marriage, a reputation, and an entire way of life sat quietly at the table, waiting to see what William Carter would do next. The next few days passed with a quiet tension that everyone in the Carter house could feel, but no one talked about openly. Lawyers began coming in and out of William's study. Accountants stayed longer than usual. Reynolds walked around with folders instead of his usual clipboard. Phone calls were taken behind closed doors. The house still looked calm, but the rhythm had changed. On Wednesday afternoon, William returned home earlier than usual. As his car pulled into the driveway, he saw Sarah sitting on the side steps again, waiting for her daughter to finish school. She stood up quickly when she saw him. "Good afternoon, Mr. Carter," she said. "Good afternoon, Sarah," he replied. "How are things? Did you pay your landlord?" "Yes, sir," she said. And for the first time since he had known her, she smiled without worry. "I paid everything." He was very surprised. He kept checking the money twice. "I'm glad," William said. She hesitated, then said, "Sir, I wanted to thank you again. Not just for the money. For listening." William shook his head slightly. "You shouldn't have had to thank me for that," he said. "Listening is the minimum." She nodded, not fully understanding what to say to a man like him in a moment like this. "My daughter talks about you a lot now," Sarah said. "She says you are a man who fixes promises." William didn't know how to respond to that, so he just said, "Where is she?" "In the library," Sarah said. "Mr. Reynolds said she could wait there after school and do her homework." William nodded and went inside. When he entered the library, he saw the little girl sitting at the large wooden table, her feet not touching the floor, a pencil in her hand and a book open in front of her. Next to the book was another drawing, another house, but this one was bigger, with more windows and 2 trees. She looked up when he walked in. "Hello, sir." "Hello," William said. "Homework?" "Yes, sir. Reading." He walked closer and looked at the book. It was a children's book about community helpers, firefighters, teachers, nurses, construction workers. "Which one do you like most?" he asked. She pointed to a page. "This one," she said. It was a picture of a firefighter carrying a child out of a burning building. "Why that one?" William asked. "Because he runs into the fire when everyone else is running out," she said. "My teacher says that's what brave people do." William looked at the picture for a long moment. "That's true," he said. She looked at him carefully, then asked, "Are you running into a fire right now?" The question caught him off guard. "Why would you ask that?" he said. "Because my mom says when people do the right thing, sometimes it makes big problems," she said. "She says doing the right thing can be scary for adults, because adults have more to lose." William pulled out a chair and sat across from her. "Yes," he said after a moment. "That's very true." "Are you scared?" she asked. William thought about that question seriously. He thought about the lawyers, the accountants, the foundation board, the company board, the newspapers that could turn a story into a scandal in a single day. "Yes," he said honestly, "a little." She nodded like that was an acceptable answer. "My teacher says brave doesn't mean not scared," she said. "It just means you do the right thing even if you are scared." William smiled slightly. "Your teacher is very wise." She looked down at her drawing again. "I'm drawing another warm house," she said. "This one is bigger because there are more people inside." "Who lives in that house?" William asked. She pointed at the small figures she had drawn. "A mom, a kid, and a man who keeps his promises." William felt something tighten in his chest again, but this time it wasn't anger. It was something else, something heavier. That evening, William had a meeting with the foundation board. They sat around a long conference table in a private meeting room downtown. The foundation board was made up of business leaders, lawyers, and public figures, people who cared about reputation, public image, and risk. William placed the financial report on the table. "There have been unauthorized transfers from the foundation account," he said. "The money will be returned in full immediately. But we need to report the incident and conduct a full audit." One of the board members, an older man named Harrison, frowned. William, do you understand what you're saying? If this becomes public, the newspapers will have a field day. Billionaire's charity money used for gambling. Do you have any idea what that headline will do? Yes, William said. I do. Another board member leaned forward. Was this theft internal or external? She asked. William paused for a moment before answering. Internal, he said. My wife authorized the transfers. The room went completely silent. Harrison leaned back slowly. William, if we report this, it becomes a legal matter. I know, William said. And if we don't report it, another member added carefully. We can quietly replace the funds, tighten controls, and no one ever has to know. The foundation continues its work. No scandal, no investigations, no damage. William looked around the table at all of them. Powerful people, smart people, practical people, people who understood how the world worked. Let me ask you a question, William said. If a poor employee stole money from this foundation, what would we do? Harrison answered immediately. We would report it to the police. We would have to. And why? William asked. Because it's the law, Harrison said, and because donors trust us. William nodded slowly. Exactly, he said. Donors trust us. People trust us. Families who apply for help trust us. So if the person who took the money is rich instead of poor, does that change what the right thing is? No one answered. William placed both hands on the table. When I was a child, he said, I thought rich people and poor people lived in different worlds. Now I know they live in the same world, but the rules are different depending on how much money you have. I created this foundation so that, at least here, the rules would be the same for everyone. He looked at each of them. So we report it, William said. We return the money. We cooperate with any investigation. And we fix the system so it can't happen again. Harrison studied him for a long moment. You understand this could cost you your company, your reputation, maybe even your marriage, he said. William thought about a small girl sitting in a library drawing a warm house. Yes, he said, I understand. Then he said something very quietly, but some things cost more than money, and I'm not willing to pay that price anymore. On Friday morning, the story broke. William knew it would. He just didn't know how fast. By 8:30 a.m., his phone had already rung 6 times. By 9 a.m., his assistant had sent him 12 emails marked urgent. By 9:15 a.m., the first news article was online. Financial irregularities found in Carter Foundation, internal investigation underway. They did not mention Margaret's name yet. They did not mention gambling. But the words financial irregularities and investigation were enough. In William's world, reputation moved faster than truth. He sat in his office downtown, reading the article on his tablet while James stood near the window on the phone with a legal team. It's contained for now, James said after he hung up. The article only says the foundation discovered accounting issues and reported them voluntarily. That part helps. It shows transparency. It was the only option, William said. James nodded. The board agrees, but the company board is nervous. Investors don't like investigations, even if you're the one who reported it. William closed the tablet and set it on the desk. Schedule a meeting with the company board this afternoon, he said. I'll explain everything myself. James studied him for a moment. You know they're going to ask you to step down temporarily as CEO until this is resolved. William nodded once. I know. And if they do? William was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Then I stepped down. James didn't look surprised, but he did look tired. You're giving up a lot for this. William looked out the window at the city below. I'm not giving it up, he said. I'm deciding what it's worth. Around noon, William returned to the house to pick up some documents before the board meeting. As he walked in through the side entrance, he heard voices in the kitchen. 2 staff members were talking quietly, but they stopped when they saw him. It's all right, William said. You don't have to stop talking when I walk in. They looked uncomfortable. Sir, one of them said. We just wanted to say. We heard about the salaries and the extra month you gave everyone. No one has ever done that before. William nodded slightly. You shouldn't have had to wait 3 months in the first place, he said. The other staff member, an older woman who had worked in the house for years, said softly. Most people don't notice when staff don't get paid on time. They just tell us to talk to accounting, and accounting tells us to wait. William leaned slightly against the counter. I noticed too late, he said. That's on me. She shook her head. No, sir. Most people never notice at all. William didn't know what to say to that, so he just nodded and left the kitchen. In the hallway, he saw the little girl sitting on the floor with her books spread out again. She looked up when she saw him. Hello, sir, she said. Hello, he replied. Homework again? Yes, sir, math today. He sat down in the chair across from her. Do you like math? He asked. She made a small face. It's okay. I like drawing more. He nodded. I was never very good at math when I was your age. He said. She looked surprised. But you're rich. Don't you have to be good at math to be rich? William smiled slightly. I got good at math because I was poor first, he said. When you don't have much money, you learn math very quickly. She seemed to think about that very seriously. Then she asked, My mom said something bad is happening to you because of the money. William looked at her. Your mom told you that? She didn't want to, the girl said, but I heard her talking on the phone. She said, He's going to get in trouble because he helped us. Is that true? William was quiet for a moment. Some people are not happy with the decisions I'm making, he said carefully. Because of the money? She asked. Yes, he said. She looked down at her math book, then back up at him. That's not fair, she said. William almost laughed, but there was no humor in it. No, he said. It's not. She thought for a moment, then said something very simple. My teacher says fair and right are not always the same thing, she said. She says you should choose right. William looked at her for a long moment. That's very good advice, he said. She nodded. Are you going to be okay? She asked. William thought about the board meeting, the news articles, the lawyers, the possibility of losing his position, his reputation, maybe even half of everything he owned. Yes, he said finally. I think I am. That afternoon, William walked into the company boardroom on the top floor of his headquarters. 12 people sat around the table, investors, partners, advisors, people who had helped him build his empire. They all looked serious. Harrison, who also sat on the foundation board, spoke first. William, we all read the report. We respect that you reported the issue yourself. That was the right legal move. But from a business perspective, this creates risk. I understand, William said. Another board member leaned forward. The press doesn't separate the foundation from the company. Your name is on both. If this turns into a criminal investigation involving your wife, the company will be dragged into the story. William nodded. I understand that too. So the board has discussed a temporary solution, Harrison said carefully. We are asking you to step down as CEO temporarily until the investigation is resolved. You will remain the largest shareholder. This is only to protect the company during the investigation. The room was very quiet. Everyone watched William, waiting to see if he would fight, argue, negotiate. William thought about a small drawing of a warm house. He thought about a landlord on the phone. He thought about his mother counting bills at a kitchen table. Then he nodded. All right, he said. If that's what the board believes is best for the company, I'll step down temporarily. Some of the tension in the room eased, but not all of it. Harrison looked at him carefully. You built this company from nothing, he said. Most men would try to hold on to that chair no matter what. William answered quietly. A chair is just a chair. He paused, then added, but if I lose who I am trying to keep the chair, then I've lost something much more important. No one in the room spoke after that, because deep down, every single person at that table understood exactly what he meant, even if not all of them would have made the same choice. The first time William Carter walked into his company building without being the CEO, the security guard at the front desk stood up a little straighter than usual. Good morning, Mr. Carter, the guard said. Sir, William gave a small smile. Good morning, Tom. You can still call me Mr. Carter. I didn't disappear. Tom looked relieved. Yes, sir. Of course, sir. William walked past the lobby he had designed himself 15 years ago when the company was still small and hungry and trying to look bigger than it really was. Back then, he had chosen the marble, the lighting, the glass walls. He wanted clients to walk in and feel like they were dealing with a company that would still exist in 20 years. Now he walked through the same lobby as a visitor in his own building. In the elevator, he stood next to two young employees who didn't recognize him at first. They were talking quietly. "Did you read the news?" one of them said. "About the foundation investigation?" "Yeah," the other replied. "But I also read that he reported it himself. That's kind of rare, isn't it?" "I don't know," the first one said. "Most rich guys would probably just hide it." William said nothing and looked straight ahead as the elevator climbed. When the doors opened on the executive floor, his former assistant, Laura, stood up from her desk out of habit. "Good morning," she started, then stopped awkwardly. "I mean, Mr. Carter." "Good morning, Laura," he said gently. "You don't have to look like someone died. I'm still alive." She smiled nervously. "The board is in the conference room. They're reviewing the media response plan." William nodded and walked toward the conference room but stopped when he saw a man standing near the window at the end of the hallway. Harrison. Harrison turned when he heard William's footsteps. "I was hoping you'd come in today," he said. "I built this place," William replied. "It would be strange if I stopped coming." Harrison nodded. "How are you holding up?" William thought about that question for a moment. "I've had worse weeks," he said. Harrison gave a small, tired smile. "The investigation will take time. The press will dig. They always do. Are you ready for that?" William looked out the window at the city. "I grew up in a place where the landlord didn't care if a child was ready or not," he said. "So I learned a long time ago that ready or not doesn't change what's coming." Harrison studied him for a moment. "You know," he said, "I've been in business for 40 years. I've seen men lose companies, fortunes, reputations. Most of them lost those things because they were trying to get more. You might be the first man I've seen risk losing everything because he decided he already had enough." William didn't respond to that right away. Finally, he said, "I didn't do it because I have enough. I did it because I remembered what it feels like to have nothing." That afternoon, William left the office early and went home. Not to the big house first, but to a small neighborhood across town. The buildings there were older, the streets narrower, the stores smaller. People walked instead of being driven. Children played on sidewalks instead of behind gates. William parked his car and walked down the street until he stopped in front of a small brick building. The paint on the front door was slightly chipped. The mailbox was slightly crooked. This was the building Sarah and her daughter lived in. He stood across the street for a few minutes, just looking at it. People went in and out. A woman carried groceries. A man fixed a bicycle near the curb. Someone laughed from an open window. Normal life. The kind of life that could fall apart very quickly if one paycheck didn't come on time. "You lost?" a voice said behind him. William turned and saw an older man sitting on a folding chair near the building entrance. The man had a newspaper in his lap and a cup of coffee in his hand. "No," William said. "Just thinking." The old man looked at him carefully. "You don't look like you belong on this block," he said. William smiled slightly. "I used to live on a block not very different from this one," he said. "Used to," the old man repeated. "That means you made it out." "I did," William said. The old man nodded slowly. "Good," he said. "But don't forget what it felt like when you were still here." William looked at him, a little surprised. "I'm trying not to," he said. The old man took a sip of his coffee. "Most people forget," he said. "Not because they're bad, because remembering hurts." William nodded slowly. "Yeah," he said. "It does." Just then, the building door opened and Sarah and her daughter walked out. They stopped when they saw William standing across the street. "Mr. Carter?" Sarah said, surprised. "Is everything okay?" William walked over. "Everything's fine," he said. "I was in the area and just wanted to see if you were settled." Sarah nodded quickly. "Yes, sir. We're okay now. We paid the rent. The landlord even fixed the heater this morning." The little girl looked up at him. "You came to check the house?" she asked. William looked at the building, then back at her. "Yes," he said. "I wanted to see the warm house." She smiled slightly. "It's small," she said. "Warm is more important than big," William replied. She nodded like she already knew that. Sarah hesitated, then said quietly, "Sir, I heard on the news about the investigation, about the money. Is that because of what happened here?" William thought about how to answer that question. "It's because something wrong happened," he said. "And when something wrong happens, someone has to fix it." Sarah looked down for a moment. "I'm sorry if this caused trouble for you." William shook his head immediately. "No," he said. "This didn't cause trouble for me. This showed me trouble that was already there. The little girl looked between them, then asked, "Are you still going to be rich?" William laughed quietly, surprised by the question. "I don't know," he said honestly. "Maybe a little less rich than before." She thought about that, then said, "That's okay. You can still be the man who keeps his promises even if you're a little less rich." William looked at her for a long moment. In all the boardrooms, all the negotiations, all the meetings with powerful people, no one had explained his situation that clearly. He nodded slowly. "Yeah," he said. "That's true." As he walked back to his car later, he realized something important. For the first time in many years, he was not thinking about how much money he might lose. He was thinking about how much he had almost lost without even knowing it. The investigation moved faster than William expected. By the following week, the Foundation's internal report had become a formal legal review. Lawyers were now involved on both sides, the Foundation's legal team and Margaret's personal attorneys. What had started as a financial irregularity was now being called what it actually was: misappropriation of funds. William sat in a quiet conference room with James and two attorneys, reviewing documents page by page. "These transfers," one of the attorneys said, pointing to a list of transactions, "were labeled as event expenses, but there are no events tied to these amounts. The money was moved from the Foundation to a private account, and from there to a gaming account at a private club." William nodded. "How much total?" he asked. James answered this time. "Including the household payroll money and the Foundation transfers, just over $2 million. William leaned back in his chair but didn't look surprised. He had already seen the number in the earlier report, but hearing it out loud made it feel more real. $2 million. Enough to pay rent for hundreds of families, enough to fund scholarships, enough to keep heaters on during winter. "Can it be paid back?" William asked. "One way or another, yes," James said. "Margaret has assets, stocks, properties, jewelry, trust funds. But legally, repayment doesn't erase what happened. The Foundation is required to report the misuse formally." The attorney nodded. "Because you reported it yourselves and are cooperating fully. This will likely be handled as a financial crime case with restitution, penalties, and possibly probation. Prison is unlikely for a first offense at this level, but it will be public." Public. That word carried more weight than most legal terms in William's world. "When will they announce it?" William asked. "Within the week," the attorney said. "Once the formal report is filed." William nodded once. "Do it," he said. That evening, when he returned to the house, Margaret was waiting for him in the living room. The television was on, muted, showing a financial news channel with a headline about the Carter Foundation investigation, scrolling across the bottom of the screen. "So it's official now," she said without looking at him. "You reported everything." "Yes," William said. Margaret turned to look at him. "Do you have any idea what people are saying about me right now?" William took off his jacket and set it on the chair. "Yes," he said. "I do. They're calling me a criminal," she said. William didn't respond immediately. "You could have handled this quietly," she continued. "You could have moved money around, fixed the accounts, and no one would ever know. But you chose this. You chose to destroy me in public." William looked at her calmly. "No," he said. "You destroyed yourself in private. The public part is just the part where the truth shows up." Margaret stood up. "You chose strangers over your own wife." William shook his head slightly. "No," he said again. "I chose right over wrong. I would have done the same thing if it was a stranger. I would have done the same thing if it was my business partner, and I'm doing the same thing even though it's my wife." Margaret laughed bitterly. "You think this makes you a hero?" William's voice was quiet. "No," he said. "It just means I can sleep at night." Margaret looked at him for a long moment, then said something that sounded more tired than angry. "Do you know what your real problem is, William?" she asked. "You still think like a poor person?" William thought about that for a moment. "Yes," he said, "I do, and that's probably the only reason I'm not a bad person." Margaret didn't respond to that. She picked up her wine glass but didn't drink from it. After a long silence, she said quietly, "Are you going to divorce me?" William did not answer immediately. He walked to the window and looked out at the dark lawn. "I don't know," he said honestly. "Right now, I'm trying to fix what can be fixed." "And what can't be fixed?" she asked. William looked at his reflection in the window for a moment before answering. Trust, he said. Margaret said nothing after that. The next day, the official report was filed, and by afternoon, every major news outlet was running the story. Wife of billionaire William Carter under investigation for misuse of charity funds. Carter Foundation reports internal theft, cooperates with authorities. CEO steps down amid family financial scandal. Reporters began calling the company, the foundation, even the house. Reynolds had to disconnect the main house phone because it wouldn't stop ringing. That afternoon, when William walked into the library, he found the little girl sitting at the table again. But this time she wasn't doing homework. She was watching the muted television. His face was on the screen. She looked at him, then pointed at the TV. "That's you," she said. "Yes," William said. "They're saying you lost your job," she said. "I didn't lose it," he said. "I gave it to someone else for a while." She thought about that. "Because of the money?" "Yes," he said. She was quiet for a moment, then asked, "Are you in trouble with the police?" William smiled a little. "No," he said. "I'm the one who told the police what happened." She seemed surprised. "You told on yourself?" "I told the truth," William said. She looked at the TV again, then back at him. "My mom says telling the truth is the hardest thing for adults," she said. "Because adults know how much the truth costs." William pulled out a chair and sat across from her. "Yes," he said. "That's true." She studied his face for a moment. "Was it very expensive?" she asked. William thought about the company, the headlines, the lawyers, the marriage that was quietly falling apart, the reputation he had spent 30 years building. "Yes," he said, "it was very expensive." She nodded slowly, then said something very quietly. "But you still paid for it." William looked at her, and for a moment, he couldn't find any words. Because she was right. He had paid for the truth, and the bill was still coming. The hearing was scheduled on a gray Monday morning. William arrived early, long before the lawyers, long before the reporters, long before the courtroom doors opened. He sat on a wooden bench in the hallway outside the courtroom, hands folded, looking like any other man waiting for something important to begin. Except most men sitting on those benches were worried about losing everything. William had already accepted that he might. James sat down next to him, holding a folder full of documents. "The prosecutors reviewed the financial records," he said quietly. "Because the money is being fully returned, and the foundation reported the crime voluntarily, they are recommending financial penalties, restitution, and probation. No prison time." William nodded once. "And Margaret? She'll have to appear in court today and formally accept the charges and the restitution agreement," James said. "It will be public record." William looked down the long hallway. People were starting to arrive now, lawyers in dark suits, clerks carrying files, a police officer talking quietly into a radio. At the far end of the hall, he could already see 2 reporters standing near the entrance, waiting. 30 years building a reputation," James said quietly, "and 1 week to change how the world sees you." William thought about that. "Maybe the world is just seeing more clearly now," he said. Margaret arrived with her attorney 20 minutes later. She looked different from the last time he had seen her dressed for poker night. Today she wore a simple dark suit, minimal jewelry, very little makeup. She looked smaller somehow, not physically, but socially, like someone who had fallen from a very high place and was still trying to understand how far down they had landed. They looked at each other but did not speak right away. Finally, Margaret said quietly, "It didn't have to happen like this." William answered just as quietly, "Yes," he said. "It did." She looked away first. When the courtroom doors opened, they all went inside. The hearing itself was not dramatic. No one shouted. No one cried. Financial crimes were handled with documents, numbers, and formal language. The prosecutor spoke about unauthorized transfers, misuse of charitable funds, and breach of fiduciary responsibility. Margaret's attorney spoke about restitution, cooperation, and lack of prior offenses. The judge asked a series of calm, precise questions. Margaret stood when she was asked to stand. She answered when she was asked to answer. Her voice was steady, but it had lost the confidence it used to have. "Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor. I accept responsibility, Your Honor." William sat in the second row and listened. At one point, the judge looked over the documents and then looked directly at Margaret. Mrs. Carter, the judge said, the money you took was not just money sitting in an account. It was money intended for people in difficult situations, rent assistance, medical support, educational programs. When money like that disappears, real people are affected. Do you understand that? Margaret swallowed slightly. Yes, Your Honor. The judge nodded. I am taking into account that the funds are being repaid in full and that the foundation reported the crime themselves. That matters. But understand, this charity money is built on trust. When trust is broken, the damage is not only financial. William lowered his eyes slightly when he heard that sentence. The damage is not only financial. He understood that better than anyone in that room. The final decision was restitution in full, financial penalties, community service related to financial accountability programs, and probation. No prison time, but a permanent public record. When the hearing ended, reporters were waiting outside the courthouse doors. Cameras turned on the moment William and Margaret stepped outside. Microphones appeared. Questions came fast. Mr. Carter, did you know about the money before this investigation? Mr. Carter, are you divorcing your wife? Mr. Carter, how much did this scandal cost your company? Mrs. Carter, do you have anything to say to the families affected by the missing charity funds? Margaret looked overwhelmed, but William stepped slightly in front of her, not to protect her from the consequences, but to control the situation. I will make a short statement, William said calmly. The reporters went quiet. The money taken from the foundation is being returned in full, William said. The foundation reported the crime as soon as we discovered it, and we are cooperating fully with the legal process. What happened was wrong. It should not have happened, and we are making sure it cannot happen again. Did this cost you your position as CEO? One reporter asked. Yes, William said. Temporarily. Was it worth it? Another reporter asked. The question hung in the air for a moment. William thought about a small apartment with a broken heater. He thought about a woman writing numbers in a blue notebook. He thought about a little girl asking him why he lied. Yes, he said, it was worth it. He did not say anything else after that. He took Margaret's arm gently, not like a husband, but like a human being helping another human being walk through a very difficult moment, and led her through the crowd of cameras to the car. They drove back to the house in silence. About halfway home, Margaret finally spoke. When the judge was talking, she said quietly, looking out the window, I kept thinking about that little girl in the hallway. The one who asked you why you lied. William said nothing. I used to think money was just numbers, Margaret said. I never thought about who was waiting for those numbers. William kept his eyes on the road. After a long silence, Margaret said something very different from anything she had said before. I think, she said quietly, I finally understand why you did what you did. William nodded slightly, but he did not say, I told you so. He just kept driving, because some lessons did not need words. They only needed consequences. A week after the court hearing, the Carter house felt quieter than it had in years. Not the heavy silence from before, the kind filled with tension and unspoken arguments, but a different kind of quiet, the kind that comes after a storm has already passed and taken a few things with it. William was in the garden early Saturday morning, sitting at a small iron table with a cup of coffee and a stack of documents. These were not business expansion plans or investment reports. These were new policy documents, foundation oversight policies, household payroll procedures, employee protection policies, anonymous reporting systems. He was rewriting the rules of his world. Reynolds walked out into the garden with a folder. The auditors finalized their recommendations, he said, handing William the papers. Dual authorization for all transfers, independent monthly reviews, and an external ethics officer for the foundation. William nodded. Approve all of it, he said, and I want annual financial literacy workshops added to the foundation programs. Reynolds looked slightly surprised. Financial literacy, sir? Yes, William said. If someone had taught my mother more about contracts and labor laws, maybe she would have known what to do when they stopped paying her. Reynolds nodded slowly. Yes, sir. I understand. At that moment, the little girl ran across the garden toward the table, holding a piece of paper. Sir, I want to show you something, she said, slightly out of breath. William put his coffee down. What did you draw this time? He asked. She handed him the paper proudly. It was another house drawing, but this one was different. The house was still there, but now there were more people drawn outside. A woman, a child, and a man in a suit. Above them, she had drawn a big sun and written, in large, uneven letters, "A house where people keep their promises." William looked at the drawing for a long time. "This is a very important house," he said. She nodded seriously. "Because no one has to ask for their money in this house," she said. "They just get it because they worked." William felt that familiar tightness in his chest again. "That's the way it should be," he said. She pointed at the man in the drawing. "That's you," she said. "But I made your hair less gray." William laughed quietly. "Thank you," he said. "I appreciate that." Sarah walked over a moment later, a little embarrassed. "I'm sorry, Mr. Carter." She gets excited when she finishes a drawing. "It's all right," William said. "I like her drawings." Sarah hesitated, then said, "Sir, I also wanted to tell you something. I got a letter yesterday." "What kind of letter?" William asked. "From the foundation," she said. "They said because of what happened, they are starting a new housing support program. And they said my daughter qualifies for an education scholarship program starting next year." William looked at Reynolds, who gave a small nod. He had already approved that program 2 days ago. Sarah's eyes were slightly wet, but she was smiling. "I don't know how to thank you," she said again. William shook his head gently. "You don't thank me," he said. "You worked. You earned your salary. Your daughter studies hard. She'll earn her scholarship. This is not charity. This is how the system is supposed to work when it works properly." Sarah nodded, holding her daughter's shoulder. "You know," she said quietly, "before this, my daughter thought rich people were just people who lived in big houses. Now she thinks rich people are people who keep their word." William didn't know what to say to that for a moment. "I'm still trying to become that kind of rich," he said quietly. Later that afternoon, William received a call from Harrison. "The board met this morning," Harrison said. "The investigation is almost finished. The foundation has recovered the funds. And the press coverage has changed." "Changed how?" William asked. "There's a new headline today," Harrison said. "You should read it." After the call, William opened his laptop and searched for the article. The headline read, "Billionaire reports own family in charity scandal, implements major reforms." He read the article slowly. It talked about the foundation reforms, the voluntary reporting, the employee compensation, the new housing assistance program, the scholarship program, the independent audits. The story was no longer just about stolen money. It was about what happened after. That evening, Margaret came into the study while William was reading the article. "I saw the news," she said quietly. William nodded but did not say anything. "They're calling you the billionaire who reported his own family," she said. William closed the laptop. "That's not a title I ever wanted," he said. Margaret stood there for a moment, then said something very different from the woman she had been a few weeks ago. "I started the community service the court ordered," she said. "Financial accountability classes. I have to help teach people about budgeting and financial responsibility." William looked at her. "The first class," she continued quietly, "was full of people who were trying not to lose their homes because of debt. One woman said she lost her apartment because her boss paid her late for 2 months. Margaret swallowed slightly. I didn't know what to say to her. William was quiet for a moment. "What did you say?" he asked. Margaret looked down. I said sometimes the people who hurt you don't even know they're hurting you. And sometimes they know, and that's worse." William nodded slowly. "That's true," he said. Margaret looked at him again. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she said, "but I wanted you to know. I understand now. About the money. About the promises. About why you couldn't ignore it." William studied her face for a long moment. He could see something there that had not. Consequences had changed her. Not completely. Not magically. But consequences had a way of teaching lessons that comfort never could. "I'm not trying to punish you," William said quietly. "I was trying to stop something wrong." Margaret nodded. "I know," she said. She turned to leave, then stopped at the door and said one more thing. "That little girl," she said, "the one who asked you why you lied. She changed everything, didn't she?" William thought about that small voice in the hallway, about a landlord on the phone, about a drawing of a warm house. "Yes," he said, "she did." After Margaret left, William sat alone in the study again. He had lost his position, his privacy, and probably his marriage. But he had kept something else. And for the first time in a very long time, he was sure that what he had kept was worth more than everything he had lost. By early autumn, the Carter house had settled into a new rhythm. Not the old rhythm, the one filled with charity galas, investor dinners, and Margaret's late-night social events, but a quieter rhythm. One that felt strangely more real. Fewer parties, fewer guests, more ordinary days. William spent most mornings working from his study at home now. He was still the largest shareholder in his company. Still attended board meetings. Still made major decisions. But he no longer carried the title of CEO. Another man sat in that chair for now, and William found that the world did not end because of it. Some mornings, he reviewed foundation reports. Other mornings, he read proposals for new housing assistance programs. Sometimes he met with lawyers, sometimes with auditors, but more and more often, he found himself doing something he had never done much before. He listened. One Tuesday afternoon, he attended a small meeting at the foundation office. Not a board meeting, just a regular program review meeting. Around the table sat social workers, program coordinators, and two women who had received housing assistance from the foundation. One of the women, maybe in her late 40s, spoke quietly but firmly. "When you're behind on rent," she said, "you stop sleeping properly. Every phone call makes your heart jump. Every knock on the door makes you think it's the landlord. You start to feel like you're already homeless, even before you are." William listened without interrupting. "The money you gave me," the woman continued. "It wasn't just rent money. It was sleep. It was peace. It was my dignity." William wrote that sentence down in his notebook. It was sleep. It was peace. It was my dignity. Later that day, he returned home and found the little girl sitting at the dining table with a book open and a serious look on her face. "What are you studying today?" William asked. "History," she said. "We're learning about important people." "What makes a person important?" William asked. She read from the page slowly. "Important people are people who change things, so other people's lives become better." She looked up at him. "Do you know any important people?" William thought about that question. He thought about presidents, business leaders, famous names on buildings. Then he thought about a tired woman writing numbers in a blue notebook. He thought about a little girl standing in a hallway asking a question no one else was brave enough to ask. "Yes," he said. "I think I know a few." She nodded, then went back to reading. That evening, William received a call from Harrison again. "The board voted this afternoon," Harrison said. "The investigation is officially closed. The auditors confirmed the new controls are in place. The foundation funds are fully restored, and public confidence is stabilizing." William leaned back in his chair. "That's good," he said. "There's more," Harrison added. "The board wants you to return as CEO." William was quiet for a moment. "I thought you might say that," he said. "You don't sound excited," Harrison replied. William looked out the window toward the garden, where he could see the little girl drawing on the stone steps again. "I spent 30 years trying to become CEO," William said. "And the last few months learning who I am without that title." Harrison didn't say anything, waiting. "Tell the board I'll come back," William said finally. "But on one condition." "What condition?" Harrison asked. "I'm restructuring part of the company into an employee protection division," William said. "Late payroll penalties, anonymous reporting for labor violations, emergency salary funds for workers in crisis, not just in my house, in every company we own." Harrison let out a slow breath. "That's going to cost money." William nodded. "Yes," he said. "It is." "You're serious about this?" Harrison said. "Yes," William replied. "Very serious." There was a long pause on the phone. Then Harrison said quietly, "You know, when this whole thing started, I thought you were ruining your own life. Now I'm starting to think you might be fixing more lives than just your own." After the call ended, William walked outside into the garden. The little girl was sitting on the steps again with her crayons. "What are you drawing now?" he asked. She held up the paper. It was the biggest house she had drawn so far, but this time, the house wasn't the most important part of the picture. Around the house were many smaller houses, and there were people standing between them, holding hands. "What's this?" William asked. "It's a neighborhood," she said. "Not just one house. Because my teacher says it's not enough for one family to be okay. A lot of families should be okay. William looked at the drawing for a long time. That's a very good neighborhood, he said. She pointed to one small figure standing between two houses. That's you, she said. You stand in the middle so no one gets pushed out. William felt that familiar tightness in his chest again. Why me? He asked. She looked at him like the answer was obvious. Because you're the man who keeps his promises, she said. William sat down slowly on the stone step beside her. Many years ago, when he was a boy, he had thought success meant never being poor again. Then he thought success meant building a company. Then he thought success meant becoming powerful enough that no one could ever ignore him again. Now, sitting on a stone step next to a child with a box of crayons, William Carter realized something he wished he had understood much earlier in life. Success was when a child looked at you and believed you would do the right thing. And he realized something else too. For the first time in his life, he was no longer trying to become a powerful man. He was trying to become a good one. Winter came early that year. The first cold wind arrived in late November, pushing dry leaves across the long driveway of the Carter house and frosting the edges of the garden where the little girl used to sit and draw during the warmer months. Now she sat inside most afternoons, usually in the library or sometimes at the kitchen table while her mother finished work. A lot had changed in a few months. William had returned as CEO, but the company felt different now. New policies had been implemented across every division: guaranteed payroll dates, emergency employee funds, anonymous reporting systems, and financial counseling programs. Some investors complained about the cost, others called it unnecessary. But many employees, thousands of them, now knew that if they worked, they would be paid on time. And if something went wrong, someone would listen. The foundation had expanded its housing program faster than expected. More applications came in every week: families behind on rent, single parents, elderly tenants, people one missed paycheck away from losing everything. William read some of the letters himself at night. He never forgot that he had once been one of those letters. One evening in December, the house was unusually lively. Not with wealthy guests or business partners, but with something much simpler. Dinner, a real dinner, with people who actually lived and worked in the house. The long dining table was not set with crystal and formal silverware. Instead, there were simple plates, warm food, and the kind of conversation that did not require anyone to pretend to be someone else. Sarah had cooked meatloaf and mashed potatoes with the kitchen staff. Reynolds sat at one end of the table. Two other staff members were there. The little girl sat near William, swinging her feet under the chair. "This is very good," William said. "I don't remember the last time I had meatloaf." "That's because rich people don't eat meatloaf," the little girl said seriously. William smiled. "Then rich people are missing out." Everyone at the table laughed a little, and the sound filled the big dining room in a way expensive dinner parties never had. Halfway through dinner, the little girl looked at William and said, "Do you remember the first day I talked to you?" William nodded. "Yes," he said. "I remember. You looked very confused," she said. "That's because I was very confused," William replied. She nodded like that made sense. "I was scared," she said. "But my mom said sometimes you have to ask hard questions or nothing changes." William looked at Sarah, who looked slightly embarrassed. "I didn't know she was going to ask you that question," Sarah said. "I'm glad she did," William said. The little girl tilted her head slightly. "Why?" she asked. William thought about that question for a moment before answering. "Because that question forced me to see something I should have seen a long time ago," he said. "Sometimes we think we are good people because we don't do bad things, but that's not enough. Sometimes good people have to fix bad things too." She seemed to think about that very carefully. After dinner, she ran to the library and came back with a folded piece of paper. "I made one more drawing," she said. "This is the last warm house." She handed it to William. In the drawing, there was a house again, but this time, the house had many windows, and inside each window there were small figures: families, children, old people, people sitting at tables, people sleeping in beds. Outside the house, there was a man standing near the door, and next to him was a small child. At the top of the page she had written, "A house where no one has to be afraid to ask for what they earned." William looked at the drawing for a long time without speaking. "This is a very important house," he said quietly. She nodded. "It's not just a house," she said. "It's a promise." William felt his throat tighten slightly, but he smiled. You know, he said, when I was a boy, my mother used to tell me something. She said, if you ever become successful, don't just build a big house. Build a house where people feel safe when they walk in. The little girl smiled. I think you did that, she said. William looked around the dining room at Sarah, talking quietly with the kitchen staff. At Reynolds telling a story, at the warm lights, at a table where no one was pretending. I'm still working on it, he said. She walked over and hugged him quickly, like children do when they don't think too much about whether it's appropriate or not. Thank you for not lying, she said. William closed his eyes for a brief moment and put his hand gently on her shoulder. You're welcome, he said. Later that night, after everyone had gone to their rooms and the house was quiet again, William sat alone in his study. On his desk were many important documents, company reports, foundation updates, legal papers. But next to all of that was a small stack of drawings of warm houses. He looked at them one by one. A small house, a bigger house, a neighborhood, a house full of people. A house that was a promise. William Carter had spent most of his life building buildings, companies, and a fortune large enough that he would never be powerless again. But in the end, the most important thing he built was something no one could see from the outside. He built trust, and he knew now that trust was the most expensive thing in the world. More expensive than houses, more expensive than companies, more expensive than reputation. Because money, once lost, could be earned again. But when a child looked at you and asked, "Why did you lie?" the answer to that question would define the kind of man you were for the rest of your life. William turned off the light in his study and looked one more time at the drawings before leaving the room. In the quiet hallway, he remembered the first day, the small voice, the hard question, the moment everything changed. And he realized something very simple and very important. Sometimes, it takes a very small person to remind a very powerful man of the promise he made a long time ago. When he was still poor, still cold, and still believed that the world should be fair. That winter night, in a big house that finally felt warm, William Carter went to sleep knowing that he had not just kept a promise to a little girl and her mother. He had kept a promise to the boy he used to be. This story reminds us that justice is not just about big courtrooms or powerful people. Sometimes, justice begins with a small voice, asking a simple question. Why did you lie? In life, it is easy to believe we are good people because we don't do bad things. But real character is shown when we choose to fix what is wrong, even when it costs us money, reputation, or comfort. The story teaches us that money is not the most valuable thing a person can have. Trust is. A paycheck may look like numbers on paper to some, but to others it is food, rent, heat, and dignity. In the end, the true measure of a person is not how much they own, but how many people feel safe, respected, and protected because that person kept their word. This video is a work of fiction created with the assistance of artificial intelligence. All characters, events, and situations are not real and do not represent any actual people or true stories. The content is intended for storytelling and emotional illustration only.